This morning we were getting into some stuff and problem solving, and I just realized it's so easy for me to get wrapped up in little things and just kind of have those blur the big things that God has been so good in. I can get all bogged down and weighed down with little things that when I look at them, I go, okay, that's minutia. In the big scheme of life, that's minutia. That's stuff nobody's going to care about 2 weeks from now, let alone, 20 years from now. And the sad part is it makes me forget for a while, or it stresses me out and causes me to lose sight of the amazing big things that God has done and that He's given and that are there. And one of the things I am thankful for, you need to know, is you guys. I am very thankful for this group of people who shares this mission, who volunteers to help us accomplish our goal, which is very simply more people passionately following Jesus. Thank you for that. And I want you to know, I give thanks for you often. I really am very, very grateful for the people that God has brought. And you need to know you're making a big difference. I really hope you understand the lives that are being changed, the people in your groups, but the people in this fellowship who are being impacted because of your ministry. So thank you for that. I want you to know what a blessing that you guys are. And that is our objective. It's why we do what we do. More people passionately following Jesus. That's why we're doing the 5x5 campaign. And I'm hearing folks' stories. I'm hearing how they're inviting people. I'm hearing some folks who are like, oh, I forget, or oh, I hate it. I can't give someone a card, I get it. It's not easy. And I know some people have a whole lot more relationships, so it's real easy for them. Others, it's more difficult. I want to encourage you guys, talk to your teams about that, because we are really seeing, I have met a number of new folks. One of mine showed up, which I thought was really cool. So I just want to say, who knows what life, what family, what legacy might be totally different because you cared enough to give someone at a gas station or a grocery store or at the office next to yours a little invite and say, hey, I'd love for you to come. You just never know what God will do. So we're seeing some cool stuff from that. I just want to encourage you to help support that. There is something that I would like to ask you to pray with me about, okay? I am praying about a Saturday night service. I know there are lots of people who appreciate a Saturday night service. There are lots of churches doing very well with the Saturday night service. Our children's ministry area is actually getting pretty full, okay, which is a great problem. We buy more chairs, we can put more chairs in here. We've got room in the sanctuary where we're having a problem. We got room in the sanctuary, we got room in the parking lot. Thank you, Lord, we're grateful for that. We don't take that lightly, okay? But right now, where we're getting hit is in our children's area. And it's not some super emergency. We can still grow. They're doing some really cool things to reconfigure that I think will make better ministry, but it will also allow us to use our space more efficiently. So I'm grateful for that. But that's a concern. And also, there's a whole group of people who, honestly, for them, they pack Saturdays so full of projects, of sports, of activities. Sunday for them, the idea of I'm going to now go to church on Sundays is a foreign concept. It really is. And for Saturday night, and we also live in a community, we live with a large Catholic population, so there's a lot of people socialize that Saturday night is an acceptable time for worship. And so that's something I'm really praying about. I just want to ask you to pray about that with me. Wouldn't be looking until probably February would be a time to start one. So we're looking for leaders who would say, yeah, we'll be a part of that. I would recruit from the congregation for a group of people who say, yeah, we'll support that. We'll help get that started. And so a lot of things would have to happen, but I've been praying with the staff and with the team, and I would like to invite you to just begin to pray with us and consider the implications of that. That's kind of a big deal. Okay? I was at a conference. Mark and Willy, why don't you guys get ready to come on up. I was at a conference this summer, and Francis Chan was one of the guests. Got to hear him speak several times. It was really great. Actually got to interview him and spend a little time with him, which was very cool. One of the things he shared while he was at this conference, because it was all about discipleship, and one of the things he shared, he talked about how he had left his church because somehow his being there, he became very popular when he wrote some books, It became almost this hindrance to discipleship. And now he had left that and was in this small group environment with just a few people meeting in a home doing discipleship, because that's what he wanted to do. And they were just going through the Word together and discipling. And they were going to do that for a year, and then they were all going to go start groups. And he wanted to be part of something like that. And he didn't feel he could be like that in the context of his church. And I'm not sitting in judgment on what he's saying. You may think it was the greatest thing in the world. You may think, wow, why'd he do that? All I know was, my thought was, man, that's a very cool picture of what discipleship is really about, so organic, so simple. But I also thought, why would you have to leave the church for that? And, if the church were broken enough, I can see how you would have to. And I don't know what the state of his church was. But I started thinking about our church. And I thought, how are we doing in that issue within our groups? How are we doing in that issue of discipleship? And Willy and Mark were both at that conference with me. We started having conversations with some of the other leaders. And just the idea of that organic discipleship, and my burden that I came away with is, how are we doing in our groups? Because we've got a great setup for it. We've got groups, we've got lots of people in groups, we've got coaches. How are we doing in the actual area of making sure real discipleship is happening in our groups? Because we would all say more people is a godly goal. All the people who are supposed to be saved aren't saved yet. So we're supposed to keep presenting the gospel and reaching people. But passionately following Jesus is also, there's a quantitative goal and a qualitative goal. It's not enough to have more people just sitting in a room and hearing a message and going away and going, oh, that was nice. We want to know they're actually growing, they're actually going deeper, they're actually becoming passionate followers of Jesus. That's what we're all about. It's not just more people, but it's more people passionately following Jesus. And so we started praying, and this was in July. Started praying and talking, brainstorming, and I started writing some things down and shooting some things at these guys, and they were shooting some things back. And we came up with some things that we think are going to be significant improvements to our own group ministry, to make sure that every group at River City, that every group that meets, every group that we promote, every group that we have, helps people passionately follow Jesus. So I want to invite these guys out to the conversation. Willy, Mayfield, Mark McLemore. A lot of love in this room for you guys. They're not just talented, they're really sweet guys.
We try to be.
We work really, really hard. Okay. One of the things we're going to do, and I just want you to get a label, okay? We're going to change the label of our groups, okay? Real simple. We want to call them growth groups. Just our generic label for all our groups. All groups are growth groups, okay? Because that's the objective, isn't it? Growth. Now, there's different types of growth groups, and we're going to talk about that. Why don't you guys tell us a little bit, you guys decide who can start, but tell us a little bit about the different types of groups. And some of these groups we already have. These are really groups we currently have, but we're going to recognize them all as growth groups. And what are the types of growth groups that we're going to have?
Well, we've already got life groups and activity groups and study groups and service groups. Again, these groups already exist at River City, but they're all now going to fall under the category of the umbrella of growth groups.
Okay. Life groups, activity groups is another kind, study groups, service groups. And the difference is what they emphasize.
Yeah, what they emphasize. A study group, obviously, is, and we'll kind of unpack that a little bit more.
Would they emphasize study?
They emphasize...
Okay.
No, serving.
Whoa, now I'm confused, Willy.
Yes. They will emphasize... study groups, or study, and then service groups will emphasize service activity, obviously activities.
Okay. You guys have come with a quantitative goal regarding groups. That is a little different for us. Okay. You have said that you want to see what percent. Okay. Talk about the number of people in groups.
So what we would like to see is on Sunday morning, any given Sunday morning, right now in this room, we'll have between the two services, somewhere around 700-800 people, adults in this room, and we would like to see 100% of our adult Sunday morning attendance in groups. 100% of our adult Sunday morning attendance. What that means is, obviously we have a lot more adults than that, they just don't all show up at the same time, but we would like to see 100% of that attendance connected somehow in groups.
Last 2 Sundays, the attendance in this room was about 800, so we're talking about 800 people actively engaged in growth groups.
Right.
Okay. Okay, Mark, tell us a little bit about what is a growth group? How are we going to define? What's the common thing that all these groups are going to have?
Well, first, we have a qualitative goal, though, that we're really after, and that's healthy, growing groups that exhibit 5 discipleship behaviors. So what we're after is these 5 behaviors are a time of prayer together, fellowship and pastoral care. We want to have a focus on the Word, so it's engaging in the Word together at some point in that time. We want a service element, serving together, and then sharing together, sharing outside yourself. So outreach to those that aren't there yet, those that are not yet in community. So every growth group, we want to see those 5 behaviors, those discipleship behaviors going on in each growth group.
Those are very specific. Our coaches can actually sit down and talk with a leader and go, how are you doing in these 5 discipleship behaviors? Now, I want you to notice something about these 5 behaviors. Stop and think about discipleship at River City. Follow, connect, grow, serve, share. 5 decisions. Follow, connect, grow, serve, share. Once you're a believer in Jesus Christ and you're in a group, the follow behavior is prayer, isn't it? That's how you follow Jesus in relationship and prayer. The connect behavior is fellowship. And when we say fellowship in a group, we're talking about people having fun together, being connected with one another, caring for one another. Okay. The group is the front line of pastoral care. Right. When we talk about engaging in the Word. One of the things I want you to know that we're going to continue doing, I hope you guys have enjoyed reading the Word together, the chapter a day. I hope you've enjoyed that going through the Gospels. And I hope that's been helpful in your group ministries. We're going to keep that up. You know, we have a 3-year Bible reading plan that we've done before. We're going to roll that out in January and just start challenging people for a chapter a day. So engage in the Word, it could simply be if a group wanted to, they could say, we're just going to take that Bible reading and we're going to help each other apply that and live that out in our lives. Or we're going to do a Bible study together. Or we're going to take the sermon base like we currently do. Any of those are ways that people could engage the Word together. Serve together, I think that's pretty obvious. Hands and feet, a ministry that they choose, and then share. Make sure, because not everybody who's supposed to be in a discipleship group is in one. So think of people who aren't here yet. Any thoughts on that, Willy? Anything?
No, that's exactly right. The next thing we want to look at is what are the implications of that for each of the groups. And for life groups, there really isn't a lot of change. One big change for life groups that we want to give groups is the freedom to choose. If a life group says we'd like to do a study, we're going to give you the freedom to do so. And some groups have done that. They've talked with their coach, but we really want to kind of open it up and just give them the opportunity to do a study together. And that's fairly significant for, a fairly significant change for life groups, just to kind of give them that flexibility.
The other groups, the organizing kind of emphasis is pretty obvious: activity, study, service. Right. A life group, it's really relationship. I mean, just being in relationship and community. Right. That's kind of their organizing thing. So those other behaviors, life groups probably have the fellowship part down. Some of our life groups might have to raise their game in some of those other 5 behaviors.
Right. Yeah. And you'll have to look at it and go, okay, where are we weak in these 5 behaviors? Because if we're healthy in those 5 behaviors, we believe healthy things are going to happen. Disciples are going to be produced. Activity groups, that's one that has been a little bit challenging, because a lot of times it's centered around an activity that takes quite a bit of time. And so activity groups are really going to have to figure out, okay, and we're not saying you have to take an hour to do a Bible study together, but are you taking time together to read the Word, pray together, go serve together? And so that's one particular type of group that's going to have to really think about what are the implications of this? How do we implement this within our structure? And you may have to make some changes, to make sure that those things are happening. But again, think about the goal. The goal is to have 100% of our people in growth groups, 100% of our adult attendants in growth groups. And so when you implement this, good things are going to happen.
If you just want to ride bikes together, just go ride bikes. We're just not going to call you a growth group and put you, and sign people up for that as a growth group. There's nothing wrong with just riding bikes. Knock yourself out. But if you're going to be an activity group at River City that is going to be a growth group, we're asking you to say, okay, we're going to be responsible to help each other grow in Christ. And that's going to involve some level of these 5 biblical discipleship behaviors. So that's really what we're talking about.
Yeah.
When it comes to study groups, of course, they're focused right now on teaching and discussion around the topic that they're teaching. We're going to ask those groups to carve out some time during their time to pray together, to have times of fellowship, and that will be the pastoral care for the people in that group while they're in that group. And then also the sharing and the serving element. Find a time while you're in that 10 or 12 week teaching session where you can go do a service project together. So, a lot of times in the past, people have felt like, well, I'm going to leave my life group to, do an additional night of the week to go attend this study, or, sacrifice what I'm doing on service to go attend this study. Well, now we're just saying you can go to a study and know that all the 5 discipleship elements that you're really looking for are going to happen in that study during those time periods. We might want to talk about on-ramps and off-ramps too.
Yeah. On-ramps and off-ramps, we currently kind of have that. Each trimester, we think in terms like a school year. There's the spring trimester, there's the fall trimester, and then there's summer, okay? And we take a little break for the holidays. Typically, a lot of groups do that. So that's kind of how the trimesters work. But we're very much going to try to make it safe for people to kind of have on-ramps and off-ramps. What we think that'll do is make group life a whole lot more attractive for some people who aren't in groups yet. Because I think people get scared. Okay, I go to church here. If I get in this group and I don't like it, then I have to quit, and then I have to dodge these people in the foyer. They don't want to do that, okay? They really, when there's a safe on-ramp, off-ramp, you go, okay, for this trimester, this is the group you're in. This is your life group. If you don't like it, find one you do. This is your study group. And it's not just a lecture study. It's not just a Bible study Tuesday night. It's a group who says we're helping each other grow, and we're going to have some level of these 5 behaviors. Nobody has to get out of a group. Life groups, we think a lot of our life groups will blow right through the on-ramps and off-ramps. And that's not going to matter to them. But we want you to give people permission to come in, be part of your life group. If they want to then go be part of a study group, that's okay. Because they're being discipled and they are experiencing those 5 discipleship behaviors that we believe put people in the way of what the Holy Spirit wants to do.
Right. And those off-ramps will be at times when you're going to probably transition anyway at the end of the school year, going into the summer. That's a big transition time for a lot of our groups. And then at the holidays, a big transition for a lot of our groups. So it'll be a natural segue for them to go and check out something else later on if they'd like to do so.
And a service group is just a group organized around serving together. Our Haven for Hope group might say, we want to be a group. We have a group called Helping Hands that does projects, might want to be a group. Some of our ministry teams might want to form a group within their ministry team. And that's absolutely fine. But a service group kind of has that service component. That's what we like to do together. We might have a Habitat for Humanity group, but they're also going to exhibit these 5 behaviors that help people grow. Okay, now tell me about your guys' roles. We did some cool things that I'm pretty excited about in you guys working together.
So at this point, I've been over our group structure, kind of the whole thing. And so what we're going to do is kind of divide the oversight of group structure to help put more focus into it. And so my role is really going to be primarily focusing on the whole connect piece of our ministry and helping people get connected to groups. So I'm going to spend a lot of time recruiting people to get connected in groups, especially at those big on-ramp times. And we're going to change the name of our cluster groups. We're going to call them New Groups for New People. And one of the things,
catchy, isn't it?
It is. It's very catchy, very catchy. But we feel like that just kind of describes what a cluster group is, because some people go, okay, what is a cluster group? And not sure they want to be a part of that.
Sounds amoebic to me, man.
So we want to change the name, New Groups for New People. It's very clear what people are going to do. One of the things we're going to do this year by Christmas time is where the couches are out there, we're moving the couches. So if you're one of the people who sits on the couch each week during the service, you're not going to have a place to sit anymore.
You'll have to actually go to church.
What we're going to do there is we're going to make a connection center. And so when we tell people go get in a group, they can still fill out the card if they'd like to, or they can go right out in the foyer. We're going to have some people there. We're going to have some iPads, and they can sign up for a group right there at that little connection center that we're going to have by Christmas time.
Connection geniuses. I look forward to that.
The geniuses, exactly. The other piece that I'm going to focus on primarily is recruiting new leaders and coaches to help support the structure. So, and one of the things we haven't done before that we're going to start doing is we're going to recruit people from the congregation on a Sunday morning. So we're just going to invite people. If you'd like to lead one of these groups, we've got a number of different types of groups. If you'd like to lead a group, come, we'll get them signed up and have an opportunity to catch some people in the congregation who maybe, haven't either got connected in a group yet, or maybe they're in a group and just haven't felt the opportunity to step up into leadership. We want to give them that opportunity. Then we'll take them through training and vet them so that they're ready to go for new groups for new people. So, training for the new leaders and managing the on-ramps and off-ramps.
And you're going to be the guy, a part of that ministry is everything guest services. Willy will continue to be over all those parts. Mark, then what's left for you to do? Okay. Willy took it all the good stuff. What do you get to do?
Well, I'm over the grow ministry, so I'm really focused on spiritual growth. So I'm really going to focus on the health of the groups. So I'm going to be a pastoral resource for the directors, for the coaches, and the groups to just support them in that. So I want to support and encourage those 5 behaviors that we talked about. So really help in ensuring that all those 5 behaviors are happening in each group, regardless of what kind of group it is. And then I'll also be a resource if somebody wants to start. If you're a life group leader and you say, hey, I want to do a study this time, I can be a resource for you to help you get that study going. Also, I'll work with, the study groups will actually have a coach. It'll be Linda Richardson. So I'll work with Linda to start new studies. So we might have something on Tuesday night, Wednesday night at the church that anybody can come to, but that will be a group that not only is going to be studying, but they're going to be exhibiting those 5 behaviors. And I'll help resource those new groups getting started. And you might decide, if you're a life group, you might decide, hey, we meet on Wednesday. There's a Wednesday night study for the next 8 weeks. We want to go attend that study as a group, and we'll have a teacher there for you. So just an idea. And then I'm going to continue just to oversee the existing ministries that I oversee now: support and recovery, counseling ministry, journey classes, women's ministry, men's ministry, prayer ministry, visitation ministry, benevolence, and baptism. So. It's just a few there.
You tried to brag, didn't you?
Wow. Well, you're the busiest guy, Mark, there. Mark works harder than anyone, okay? So basically, you're going to recruit and train coaches and leaders and then actually hand them off to Mark, where he's going to support them pastorally.
Right.
Mark has resisted this thing, but I've really shared his ministry is apostolic. And he resisted being called the Apostle Mark, which I'm going to go with, okay? If you want to join me in that, feel free.
It's on video now.
Yeah, feel free. I hope it's, online. But really, it is an apostolic ministry. And coaches, I think we've gotten so bogged down sometimes in the administrative. Coaches, if you're in this room, I want you to know your ministry is not primarily administrative. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be pastoral and apostolic, supporting leaders, starting groups, and then making sure that discipleship happens. And we feel like really identifying what these 5 group behaviors are is going to help the coaches coach you in that, support you, remind you, and help you go, okay, these are the things I need to be doing. Can you imagine a group actually that is praying together, really fellowshipping and caring for one another pastorally? They're engaging in the Word regularly together, serving together, and looking outside for who's not here yet. Can you imagine those people not growing spiritually? Yeah, I can't either. Because that's just biblical discipleship, and it should be normal. But I know, especially as we grow and become decentralized, and that's really what we want to do. We want to give leaders the ability. A life group leader, like Mark said, could say, you know what, there's going to be a great Ephesians study at the church, and it's on our night. You all want to go? Okay, so for this 8 weeks of our trimester, we're going to be doing that. And then we'll come back and we'll do sermon-based, or we'll do a scripture reading plan, or however. And you'll work with your coach on what that looks like and how we're going to do that. But give you some flexibility on, hey, our group's going through something. We've got a bunch of people who really want to spend some time talking about finances and biblical finances. Well, we can do that. Designed to give more pastoral ministry and discipleship ministry into the hands of the group leaders. Does it make sense? Anything else that we need to share? Because we want to open this up for some Q&A, okay? We want to give you some time. I'm hoping you have some good questions because we want there to be a sense of clarity. Because really we're going to, in December, start promoting the groups that we're going to start in the spring in January. Do we have a microphone for them, Kimmy? I'm sorry. I probably should have told you about this, shouldn't I? Should have shared that with Kimmy. Yeah, Willy, Mark and Willy can share. They're very caring guys. Any questions? Kimmy will get a mic to you. Or seriously? No questions? Come on. Do you understand it crystal clear? You're like, oh yeah, that's not that different. Or, holy cow, I can't believe you're doing this to us. What's wrong with you? Yes, ma'am. So everyone can hear.
I just had a question about, are you going to, you were talking about, possibility for our groups going and taking other classes or type, are you going to have like a list for us to say, hey, we talked to our life group and this is what we'd like to do?
Mark, are you going to have these things
Yes,
for
we
people?
will have a list. And there'll be written resources, that'll list. So again, they're going to be in those different categories. So activity, service, growth, and our life, and then study groups. So you'll just look under the study group category. We'll have a list of all the studies that are going on. Now, what we may not know if an individual life group is doing a particular study, that's
particular to them.
Yeah, it's particular to them.
But if we're hosting a study here, it'll
Right.
be publicized, and by
Right.
December, we're going to have that information out, or early December, that information out for the spring. So
Right.
you'll be able to look at it like a menu and say, oh, we could attend one of these groups.
Right.
Or Mark has some resources that he could refer to you and say, here's some studies that if you want to do just one with your group, you could do.
Right. And then there'll be the connection center that Willy talked about. You can go there any Sunday and see what the offering is.
One of the things that those groups will have, if you come up here with your group to the church, now one of the things that they will now offer as a part of that is a small group time in there. So you'll have a teaching, whatever that looks like, whether it's video or live teaching or whatever, and then there's going to be a small group component where you guys will have discussion questions, almost like you're listening to a message and then having an opportunity to discuss it there. So you'll still have that group component as part of a Bible study here at the church. It'll just be facilitated by someone live.
And we think what that'll do is remind people that group isn't a meeting. So just because you all go and change location, we're going to be at the church and we're going to be doing this study for 6-8 weeks, you're still the group. You're still in relationship and discipleship together. You're just choosing that activity for this period of time. Make sense? Cool. Exactly right. We hope so. And it allows for a more individual, particular focus. Any other questions?
And I also just say, we have teachers a lot of times that want to teach and don't really have opportunity to teach. So this kind of opens the window for that. As long as we've got space available, we can have as many, if you're a teacher, you want to teach something, come see me, we'll work on it and we can offer it, and then, anybody in the body can attend that class.
Yeah, Melissa.
What about Sunday service groups where like guest services or the communion team, or if you are teaching, serving one service and attending church the next
That's
service?
really, we see that as a ministry team, which is a little different. They, honestly, if they wanted to, if a group of people said, hey, you know what, we're together every week, we all do guest services, we like each other, let's be a group. You could. And you could then be a growth group, and it could be the first service, guest services growth group. But you would have to do these 5 behaviors and find a way and a time to do that. You wouldn't have to do that, but you could. Does that make sense? Yeah, Scott.
Could you all expand just a little more on what the sharing part would look like?
On street corners, bullhorns, that sort of thing, Scott. You know what I'm talking about. I have been clear on this. You talk about that.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the
The
question.
sharing component of a group.
Oh,
Think
okay.
empty chair. That
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, yeah. You're just wanting to think about, okay, how can we connect with other people that aren't a part of this? Maybe you do a relational event, have a barbecue, and invite some new people from the church to be a part of, come to your barbecue at your house, or maybe you invite some neighbors who aren't attending church to come and be a part of a party, whatever, some activity that will connect people to your group or to the church. You just want to be thinking about who's not here.
Yep. Does that make sense, Scott? Other questions? Now we're getting one. We got one here, and then we got
Yep.
Frank over here. How about Frank, since she's right there, and then you.
I think the on-ramp and off-ramp is a great idea, but without clarity and encouragement, that might just meander a little bit. How are we going to structure that so we can remind everyone, hey, it's coming up, it's time, if you want, to move on.
One of my big deals. You know the news we have on Sunday? And sometimes when there's like 40 different things that people are wanting to do, and then they try to get me and get 4 announcements from me, plus the closer with 3 announcements because all these different groups, we're going to put an end to that. Other than big church-wide things, we're just not going to do that, because what we're going to do is make crystal clear that groups. Because really we've always put our eggs in that basket, but we are going to promo like crazy at the beginning of every trimester. Actually, the end of one, we're going to start talking about the next trimester, okay, and prepping people. So we are going to be very intentional about promo. That Connection Center is all about, we're trying to make it, excuse my way of saying it, but we're trying to make it idiot-proof to where you cannot miss. You can't come in here and not know how to get connected. The reason those folks are using iPads is not just because we want to be cool, okay? Although we will be cool. I mean, you know that. We got to get iPad Air. We can't have those first generations. That would give us away. The reason we're using iPads is so people can learn right away, oh, I kind of don't need you to do this, do I? Because this is reallife.org, and I can go on there myself and look at these groups and do this, can't I? Uh-huh. There's a great page, by the way, which I wrote it about in my letter last week, but just go on reallife.org, a yellow button on the left-hand side that says Real Life News. It's going to have a lot of stuff. We're just trying to make the communication piece. Frank, our communication is going to be get in a growth group. Every trimester, we're going to start, okay, what's going to be your growth group for this next trimester? We're all getting in growth groups. And we've kind of just let that be our message and been pretty kind of low-key, and every once in a while talk about it. We're going to be very intentional as we ramp up to those new on-ramps. What's your growth group going to be for this trimester? Make sure you're signed up. We're going to keep track of how many. We're going to let people know, hey, a lot of you aren't in growth groups. Here's an opportunity. Does that make sense? Gotcha.
Right.
Excellent point.
And-
Because that won't be as easy. Okay, stop going to group now. Stop. You know, that's not as natural a communication point. You're right.
And I think what Sean was just talking about, that just a crystal clear message of get in a growth group. We're not going to advertise independently Bible studies and life groups from the platform. We're going to advertise growth groups, which encompasses all of those. So if they're in one of our catalogs or on our website, that implies they're a growth group, and a person in our audience can hear, okay, I need to go get in a growth group. They can go out there and pick any one of those categories: service group, activity group, life group, study group. They're all going to have the same components. They're all going to look a little different, but one message: go get in a group. And so we're hoping that that'll be clear for people, and they'll understand what I'm doing when I walk out there. I'm getting in a group.
But we will, Frank, we will be more intentional about saying, okay, it's time. The off-ramp is coming up, and the big part of the messengers of that message is you guys. Okay, you guys have to be prepared. Okay, we're gonna kind of close this chapter, and just know, we're absolutely fine if groups say, no, we want to stay together. That's fine. We think most of our life groups probably will do that, and we expect that. That's fine. But you can't believe how important it is to give people permission to say, okay, now's a natural close, and it's okay for me to go check something else out. Doesn't mean I hate you guys, and doesn't mean I can't come back, but it's time to go do that, and it's okay. It also, you're going to see the numbers of people comfortable with trying a group out, I think, go up because it's a beginning and an end point, whereas right now it's kind of perpetual group involvement.
And if you do have a couple of people leave your group, well, guess what that does? It creates some space, right? So new people.
Yeah. Over here.
So at the Connection Center, when people are going up to look at what kind of groups are there, how easy is it going to be for a life group, growth group, service group to update what they're doing at the Connection Center? So say I have a 6-week course, I'm going to be doing this, but now we're going to be doing this now, and someone might say, oh, I like this. This study looks really interesting to me.
For life groups, we weren't necessarily planning, because of that very dynamic, we weren't gonna say exactly what they're doing. If they're choosing to do a 6-week study and then go back to sermon-based or something else, we weren't gonna advertise those. We were gonna advertise, this is a life group. Call the group for information. I mean, that was kind of our idea. But the study groups, they're going to have to be pretty defined and say we're studying this and then we're studying this. Okay? Activity groups are pretty, okay, we center around this activity. Service groups, we do this service.
Will cluster groups still be 4 weeks or 6 weeks, or are you thinking of a whole trimester as the introduction?
The new groups for new people? Is that the question?
Excuse me, yes. New groups for new people.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Wow, he's being awful testy since he said it like one time.
Yes.
Sorry, Ryan.
Yes, no, they're still going to be 4 weeks, just like we've done it. And again, going back to the on-ramp, off-ramp thing, what that has done for people is give them the freedom to go check out a group. Okay, I'm only committing for 4 weeks. Again, out of all of the 16 or so, whatever, I think that's the number of cluster groups we've done the last 2 times, 75% of those groups, or maybe higher, 80%, have continued on as groups. So I think what that does is it just gives them permission to try it out, and then once they build the relationships, they typically don't want to quit.
Anymore. You're going to have some time to discuss this in your groups, and we want to give you group time, but if we can clear any up here, I think it's going to make it easier for your group discussions. Any other questions?
Right
there. Is it Ignacio? Who?
No.
Jeff.
Oh,
Jeff.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey, you defined the goal as 100% of Sunday service attendees involved in life groups. What's the as-is state? How many do we have currently? Are we 500, in life groups, or?
In life groups, we have around 400, okay? But that is not counting any of the Bible studies that we currently have in place, or service groups that or activity groups that we currently have in place. So we're about 400 with the life groups.
In fairness, those life groups, though, are the ones that are probably doing these 5 behaviors. The others are not necessarily. Right. Some might be. The Bible studies basically focus on doing a study, begin and end, lecture, discussion, and kind of do their deal. Activity groups do their activities. So that's where we're like, okay, 400 in a life group isn't bad, and that number may not change a lot, but we really want to get at least, like right now, we would say we want to be at 800 adults in groups, growth groups. And so we've got a lot of work to do. Yeah. Kimmy, sorry. They're not cooperating at all, Kimmy. They're
When Melissa and I were looking at joining groups, we noticed a lot of the groups on there, it had like the campuses back then. It said like, okay, this campus has these groups, this campus has those groups. And a lot of them didn't have addresses. Is there any way to get like just a zip code? And we could do like a sort based on zip code?
Right, and they have that now.
They do have that now?
They have it now, yes.
Great.
All the groups that meet in homes, or even the activity groups, have a zip code where they're meeting. If it's on campus or in a region, we give them a zip code.
Okay. Are you able to
and a
search or
description of
sort
the group.
by?
Do what? I'm sorry?
Are you able to search or sort by zip code?
I don't think we can do that. Can you do it on the
We
website?
can.
Okay, yes, you can.
Of course
I
we
just
can.
learned.
We knew that.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Real quick, one more. Bo.
Oh.
Not a question, just a hearty amen. I think those 5 elements, every group should be doing that, and I'm ashamed that we have to remind our groups that that's the 5 elements, because when we're together as a body, regardless of what we're doing, we should be doing all 5 of those things. So amen.
Thank you, Bo. Thank you, Bo. And that really is our thought as well. Christians, when we get together, we should encourage each other in those things, and we hope to raise that expectation that, hey, we're in a group together, we're going to help each other grow. That's what we're going to do. And we really hope to see the discipleship level of our people, their knowledge of the Word, their obedience, their prayer life together, just our spiritual maturity really take a sharp upturn. And that's an exciting prospect. It's more people passionately following Jesus. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. You want to send them to the groups? Okay, you guys, Willy's going to send you groups. Be the ball.